Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the QNAP and Nakivo webinar. Thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate you taking time out to attend the webinar. I appreciate everyone gets asked about a lot of these at the moment, with everyone working from home. To start us off, Yuri from Nakivo is going to go through a presentation, and then Nick from Nakivo is also going to cover some more technical stuff for Nakivo, and then Craig, our technical manager, is going to be providing a demonstration of the software and how you would configure it on your QNAP NAS. So, Yuri, over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. So let's start by introducing ourselves. My name is Yuri. I'm the team lead channel manager at Nakivo company and Denik Luchkov, director of pre-sales engineers. So I will do the commercial part, and after my presentation, Nick will show you the Nakivo software in action. So let's start from a quick overview about our company. That Nakivo is a US-based corporation. It was founded in 2012 in Sparks, Nevada. Currently, we have more than 17,000 paid customers in more than 140 countries, and the largest of them protect more than 8,000 virtual machines in 300 plus robo locations. Speaking about the community reviews, you can find a lot of community reviews on Gartner, TrustRadius, Spiceworks, and other platforms. And there we have almost 98% satisfaction with our technical support. And talking about the channel, we have over 6,000 channel partners around the globe. So why people choosing Nakivo? Nakivo provides you with all-in-one solution. It's the backup, replication, instant restore, and site recovery to orchestrate the disaster recovery process. So Nakivo supports virtual, physical, cloud, and software as a service environments. So in terms of hypervisors, it's VMware, Hyper-V, and Nutanix, EC2 instances of Amazon, Windows and Linux physical servers, Microsoft Office 365, Exchange Online, OneDrive, and SharePoint, and Oracle databases. One of our advantages is that you can run Nakivo almost anywhere. You can deploy Nakivo on NAS, on Linux, Windows, and if you don't need to spend your time by installing the operating system and do all the configurations, you can use our pre-configured virtual appliance based on Linux Ubuntu with pre-installed Nakivo, and the AMI Amazon Machine Image for AWS. So world-leading brands that trust Nakivo is DHL, Honda, Fujifilm, SpaceX, Universities of Arizona, Maryland, Johns Hopkins, and Verifone, one of our biggest customers, then more than 3 years, successfully renewing their licenses. That's the multinational corporation that provides technology for electronic payment transactions. So they protect more than 100 hosts, spread all over 60 sites with more than 1,000 virtual machines. So as a result, they perform the fast and easy VM backups locally and archiving their backups to Amazon Cloud. Here's the milestones that you see there. We are working hard. We're adding new features almost every quarter. The last year was pretty successful for us. In quarter 1, 2, and 3, we added 2 features each quarter. So what's new in the latest version 10.2? In the 10.2 version of Nakivo Backup and Replication, we added the support for SharePoint Online Backup, so you can backup SharePoint Online sites and subsites and recover the document libraries and lists back to original location or to another SharePoint site. Tenant resource allocation, that feature allows you to allocate the resources from master to the tenants in multi-tenancy mode. So resources such as VMs, backup repositories, transporters, etc. And ransom-proof backups with Amazon S3 object lock. So you can lock your last recovery points inside the Amazon S3 storage to make them immutable, so no one can delete or override them. Let's talk about the deployment options. I can say that Nakivo is pretty light on resources. It requires only 2 cores and 4 GB of RAM. And you can deploy Nakivo on Linux, Windows, use our pre-configured virtual appliance for VMware and Nutanix, and pre-configured AMI for Amazon EC2. So one of our advantages is that you can deploy Nakivo directly on QNAP box. So by installing Nakivo on the QNAP, you can get 5-in-1 backup appliance. It's robust backup hardware, complete backup software, reliable backup storage, built-in data deduplication, and backup to cloud functionality. So by using Nakivo with QNAP, you can perform 2x more storage space reduction, 2x increase in backup replication and recovery speed, because Nakivo drives the data directly to the QNAP disks by passing CFS and NFS protocols. And of course, it's 5x more affordable backup appliance. That's the very powerful combination. So here is some customer testimonials, so few words, some feedback of our customers by using the Nakivo, how they can benefit by using Nakivo in combination with QNAP NAS. So let's start from the first one. We installed Nakivo backup and replication on QNAP NAS in order to separate our VM backups completely, so that if we are hit by disaster or virus, our VM backups will remain unaffected and available for the recovery, says Oppo Oscar AG. And the second feedback from Parks company. With Nakivo and QNAP, we managed to save 100% of our data, because as we start running out of storage space, we can always just put in another hard disk. Basically, right now, we can probably run 20 years of backup, says Parks Resources Incorporated. So overall, what Nakivo can do in terms of backup? Nakivo can backup virtual and cloud virtual machines, physical servers and workstations, Windows and Linux, Office 365, OneDrive, SharePoint, and Exchange Online, Oracle databases. And also we have native integration with Amazon S3 and Wasabi cloud storages. So we're talking about the most useful features of Nakivo. We have mentioned here 3 of them. So first, that's the app-aware mode. This feature was created to make your backups consistent, to avoid any data lost during the backup process. If your machine is based on Windows, you are using VSS technology of Windows, that's the volume shadow copy. And if it's based on Linux, you have to use pre and post job scripts to freeze the machine, make the snapshot, and then post through unfreeze. Speaking about the policy-based backup to match policy rules, this enterprise feature allows you to set up policy rules. And based on these rules, the machines will be added to the job automatically. It can search by VM name, tag, location, data store, power state, even IP address. And talking about the verification options, Nakivo offers you 2. First, it's the screenshot verification, and the second, it's the boot verification. Boot verification will boot the machine on your target server and check if all the agent and hypervisor tools are running properly and send you the feedback by email. In case of screenshot verification, Nakivo will boot the machine, run the operating system, and will make the screenshot of operating system, and the screenshot will be sent to your email. So in the morning, you can check that your machine can be booted and recovered from the backup. Native backup to tape support. Recently, we added the support for tape devices, so you can perform incremental and full backup to tape. Easily manage your tape backups and cartridges, copy your backups to tape automatically with policies. So if you're backing up your data on QNAP NAS, you can send automatic backup copies for archiving to the tape device. And talking about the backup copy feature, this feature allows you to mirror all your backups and send them to the remote location. So you can set the copies offsite or to the public clouds, and you can automate all the processes with the job chaining. And you can create the backup storage tiering when you can do daily backups to your fast local storage, then weekly backups to offsite, slow local storage, and monthly backups to the cloud, by creating the multiple copies of your existing backup to be more protected from the disaster or ransomware. Let's talk about the global deduplication of Nakivo backup and replication. So using this feature, all the duplicate blocks are skipped, while Unix data blocks are compressed to make your backups even smaller. So global deduplication with Nakivo backup and replication can save up to 70% of your storage space. Let's talk about the recovery options with Nakivo. So first, let's start from instant VM recovery. So if you need to recover your virtual machine almost instantly, within a minute, you can use our feature called Flash VM Boot. This feature allows you to boot the machine instantly on the target server within a minute. So how it works? It creates an empty machine on the target server, then mounts as a SCSI targets the disks from the backup to newly created machine and boots it. So the machine will be available in less than 1 minute. Then you can migrate this VM into the production or do replication from this machine. Also, you can use this feature for testing purposes because at the same time we are creating the snapshot, and all the data that you will change or add to the booted machine will go to the snapshot, and the data inside the backup repository remains the same. Let's talk about the granular recovery. So besides the full VM recovery and flash VM boot, Nakivo can recover files and folders, objects of Exchange, SQL, and Active Directory back to source or to another server. And we have universal object recovery. This feature works as the flash VM boot, but the disks will be mounted, connected to the existing machine as an additional partitions. So you can go inside these disks and recover whatever you want from the inside. And if you have physical machine backups, you can convert it into VMware VM by using Nakivo backup and replication. If your physical server crashed, it will take time to recover it. You can boot it as a VMware VM using native VM recovery or the flash VM boot feature to boot the machine instantly. So let's speak about the disaster recovery, instant and automated. Let's start from replication. Replication is incremental, image-based with app awareness. You can replicate your machine from the source VM or from the backups. So if you need to create the replication and the backup at the same time, you don't need to overload your machine by doing 2 snapshots. You can do 1 snapshot for the backup and then create the replication from this backup. Replication is available for VMware, Hyper-V, and AWS EC2. And you can save up to 30 recovery points for replication, so you can roll back to any of those. And using replications, you can perform the site recovery feature. This feature allows you to automate and orchestrate all the disaster recovery processes. What is more important, that Nakivo can provide you the actions, and you can use the sequence of actions to automate all the disaster recovery plan. With the single click, you can recover the entire infrastructure. It can do failover by granting the control from the source machine to the replica, then failback action. It will synchronize the data between the replica and the source machine, so all the new data will be transferred to the source. The replica will be powered off and the source machine will be turned on with the minimum downtime. Also, this feature can do the check condition to check if your resource is running, if your IP host name is reachable, if the resource exists. Also, it can send an email, attach detached repositories, run scripts to start, stop machines, and others. And what is more important here, that this feature is very affordable with Nakivo backup and replication compared to the other vendors. So the other vendors with site recovery feature, they're selling as a separate product or for crazy money, for $2,000-3,000 per CPU socket. With Nakivo, it's very affordable because you can get it even in our Essentials Enterprise Edition. So in terms of commercial part, that's it from my side. Thank you so much. I will pass my word to my colleague Nick. Nick, your turn. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Yuri, thanks a lot. I will change myself to a presenter and we'll show my screen in a while. All right, so I believe you can see my screen. You can see Nakivo backup and replication solution, and I would like to start from how you can deploy Nakivo backup and replication on your QNAP and how you can access the files, the packages to deploy the product. First of all, the package is available on App Center for QNAP, and the second, you can go directly to Nakivo website, which is nakivo.com, and then click download free trial. This trial is available for 15 days with no feature limitations. And once you fill up the form, which will be over here, you will get the list of installers. Then you can find installer for NAS and QNAP package. So this QNAP package is a full solution. It contains 3 main components. The first one we call directory. In short, this is UI. This is the central management console where you create your backup and replication jobs. And then this package also includes the transporter transporter, that's the data mover. That's the engine of the product. And the third component would be the pre-created repository on your QNAP device already. Moreover, you have an option to install a single transporter on a QNAP. This is more used when you would prefer to keep Nakivo as a virtual appliance on your SXI host or Hyper-V host, but you would like to have a Nakivo repository created on the NAS device, and you would like Nakivo transporter to sit on that NAS device to accept the data. So that's the option. All right, let's move to the UI of the product. I have already installed the product on the NAS device. It is web-based, so once you install Nakivo on QNAP, you will get the shortcut on the desktop, so you can click on that and Nakivo will open the installation or configuration wizard. Alternatively, you can just type the IP address of your QNAP device and the specific port, which is 4443, and then you will see the Nakivo interface this way. Just a quick overview, that's the main menu where you see dashboard, where you can see the activities, what's running, and you can see the past activities. You can see the calendar. Calendar will reflect the jobs which are scheduled in your environment. Then you have global search functionality. Over here you can search anything, jobs like protected VMs, unprotected VMs, anything basically which is available in Nakivo. And settings gives you the possibility to set up the configuration where you can create the backup repositories and set up those data movers, which are transporters. Help gives you an overview. First of all, you can click on About and just see which version are you using. Then you can click on Request Support. This is the way how you can access support team. You will get an interface which will prompt you to provide the description of the issue, if any, and then you can provide your email address and click on this button. So Nakivo will automatically generate the support ticket for you. And there is an online help center. Just to mention, we have not every QNAP device is supported. Most of them are supported, of course. You can find the list of that devices on online help center. The minimum requirement is one gig of RAM. If it's 1 gig of RAM, most of all the QNAP device will be supported. But anyways, I would advise you just to double check either on help center. Moreover, you can chat with our support team like this one and select the support department and clarify if your NAS model will be supported to install Nakivo on. Okay, let's move forward. This is the dashboard. It shows you the jobs you have in your environment. Those are backup, replication, recovery jobs, so all types of jobs available. And on each level, we have the dashboard, which shows you, let's say, I will change the job, and the job will show you the details. In my case, I'm backing up one virtual machine with this Hyper-V backup job. I'm backing up this machine to the repository, and you can see the speed of transfer and the amount of transfer data. The events are specific to this job. Once you will install Nakivo for the first time, Nakivo will ask you a couple of things. It will be like a pre-configuration wizard, and it will ask you first to add the things you would like to backup. And as Yuri mentioned before, you can backup SXI or vCenter server, you can backup Hyper-V, you can backup Nutanix VMs, you can backup Office 365, you can backup Oracle databases, you can backup physical servers and workstation, both Linux and Windows. Once you will add the environment to inventory, and Nakivo will ask you if you have a transporter in your environment. So a transporter will be available as soon as you have QNAP package. So, there might be a chance that, if you have big environment, you can install a couple of transporters. Let's say a transporter can sit on every ESXi host, as an example. We don't license the transporters, but if you have installed the transporter somewhere else, Nakivo will ask you to add the transporter to Nakivo UI, so there will be a communication between the director and transporter. And the third step would be to create a repository. By default, the repository will be pre-created already if you are using this package. But, well, if you would like to use backup copy, which is moving the repository data from one side to another, making a copy of repository, maybe you would like to back up to NAS device and then offload your backups to S3 as an example. So you would need to add another backup repository. Once everything is done, you're ready to do the backups or applications. I will give you an example how to create the backup, let's say, for the Sphere environment. So for this one, you have to click on Create the Sphere Backup Job. Then you have to select what you would like to backup. Well, first of all, you can select any entity here. Nakivo provides the container protection. So let's say if I would like to backup the entire ESXi host, and I can exclude some VMs from this host. So every time I will add a new VMs to this host, the new VMs will be added automatically to this backup job, but the excluded ones, of course, will be excluded. The container can be not only the host, it can be resource pool as well. Nakivo can make a prioritizations of the VM, so you can just drag and drop the VM and move it in the line. So this VM will be backed up first. That's convenient if this VM is, let's say, the most critical for you, and you would like always it to be first when you do the backup. Moreover, Nakivo provides you with the policies. Policies allow you to automatically include the VMs to the backup job. So let's say I would like to back up all VMs where VM name contains, for example, SQL. Do we have those? Yeah, we have some of those. Moreover, let me give you another example. I would like to back up also. If it's also, we need to change the criteria, which is any rule. So we have or here, and we can back up all VMs containing test. Yeah. Alternatively, you can select the other criteria like name, tag, location, name of the data store. So that's very, very granular. So you can create any policy. The most customers of Nakivo backup application use name and tag. So just from my experience, tagging is very convenient. So you can tag the VM specifically, and then you'll be sure that the VM will be included into the backup job. All right, so I will select a couple of VMs. Let's make 2. The next step asks you where you would like to backup. So that would be our onboard repository. That would be the repository which was created for on your QNAP device. Well, I just want to mention that we have a specific repository for Microsoft 365 items. This repository can also be created on the NAS, on the QNAP, and you cannot have a mixture of VMs and Microsoft 365 in one repository. So that's why I have those 2 repositories dimmed, and one repository is served for VMs. Well, just to show the advanced options, if you have many disks in the VM, you can skip those disks if required. Well, you can send the backups to different repositories within one job, or you can use the mapping. So if you have already some backup data in some location, you can map this job to that existing data. Next step would be the scheduler. So Nakivo gives you the options how frequently you can back up the VMs. It can be daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. periodically, or you can run one backup job after another. Let's say you can back up the VM to the NAS drive, and then once it will be finished, you can backup copy the repository to the cloud environment. Let me run it periodically on work days, every 30 minutes. And I will add another schedule, which will back up on weekends every 5 hours, as an example. And then the next step gives you the retention settings, and with Nakivo you can keep up to 4,000 recovery points. Moreover, Nakivo provides you with the GFS backup rotation, so you can keep the backups for years, for months, for weeks, and for days. If I select this option, keep one recovery point per year for 3 years, this means that the very last backup of the year for me will be stored for 3 years in the form of a recovery point. The last step would be the options, and where you name the job, you provide the app aware mode. This is used to back up your critical apps in a consistent state, and this applicable mostly for Exchange servers, SQL servers, SharePoint. Change tracking can be utilized from VMware. If you have Hyper-V, then Nakivo will utilize RCT. So those technologies are served to detect the change blocks. The initial backup will be full for you, of course, and then Nakivo will detect the change blocks and will do the incremental backups. Then if you transfer the backups offsite, let's say to S3 or to Wasabi, you can enable network acceleration and encryption. Network acceleration will compress the data before the transfer, and encryption will encrypt it with AES 256-bit encryption. Then VM verification is just an extra way how you can verify the bootability of the VMs from the backup repository. In fact, Nakivo automatically verifies the consistency of the backup repository, and you can schedule this verification. So those settings are done on a repository side. But this is an extra way, so Nakivo can do the backup of the VM, then it will turn on the virtual machine directly from the backup repository, which will be compressed and deduplicated, and then Nakivo will wait for some time, let's say for 2 minutes, and then Nakivo will take the screenshot of that booted VM, and you will see that screenshots in the report. So this way you can be sure that VM is bootable. Moreover, to eliminate unnecessary data, Nakivo can skip swap files and can skip end-use blocks. So this also reduces the amount of data which needs to be transferred, and the transfer speed will be faster, of course. Then you can send the reports after job completions, you can truncate Exchange in the SQL logs, you can run pre- and post-job scripting. Nakivo can automatically detect which transporter mode to use, so you can configure direct SAN access, or hot-add can be used, or you can do the transfer over LAN. Then the transporter selection is more for more complex things, for scalability, so I will just skip this part, and you can do the bandwidth throttling. By default, Nakivo is using the entire available bandwidth to transfer the backups, but you can throttle the bandwidth based on bandwidth throttling rules. Well, that's it. We can, let me just name it VMware webinar, and I will finish this job. Okay, so you can, of course, well, we have an example of VMware backup job completed here. Have one Linux machine, and let me show you what you can do in terms of recoveries. So Nakivo provides granular recoveries on the file level and on the object level. From the object level, Nakivo supports those three solutions: Exchange, SQL, and Active Directory. Well, if you would like to recover on an object level, but it's not native, I mean that your application is a bit different rather than those ones, you can automatically map the disk which is in a backup to any target. Let's say you can map it to your laptop, and then you can manually go to that disk and retrieve the data from that disk. So this feature is called Universal Object Recovery. Backup export allows you to, first of all, export the backups in, I would say, backup vendor independent format, which would be VMDK or VHDX, or this can be used if you would like to migrate from VMware to Hyper-V and vice versa. So you can export VMware backups into VHDX format, and then you can create a VM which will use this VHDX as a disk on Hyper-V environment. FlashBoot allows you to boot up the VM instantly in a couple of minutes, even I would say can be even less than 1 minute. And this is done mostly for verification purposes. Again, an extra level of verification, I would say. So you can test the applications inside patches, and then you can discard that booted VM, and it will be removed from the environment. Another way it can be used for quick recovery, so you can flash boot the VM first, and then if you need to move this VM to the production environment, you have to replicate that flash booted VM, and it will be available in production. And VM recovery from the backup means the full recovery from the backup. Right, let's try those two, individual file recovery and full recovery. So I will click on individual files. In my case, on the right, I should have a list of recovery points, but since my job was completed only once, I can see only one recovery point. Next step would be Nakivo gives you the options. So either you would like to recover that file to the specific server, or you would like to use a web browser to download this file via web browser, or send an email via the web browser. So let's use this option. Next step would be files. So Nakivo retrieves the data from the backup repository now, and we should see the list of files, of the Linux files. Well, yeah, it's here now. We have the volumes, and we see the files. Then we can select the files, and we can select the folders the same way. We move to the next step. Now, what we would like to do, either download via browser or forward this via email. Yeah, let's download. Again, you can recover back to the original location, to the original server, and this can be done on the first stage, but in my case, I'm just showing the download via the browser. We click on recover, and we're going to get the download here. Let's try recovery of the full backup. We'll click again on recover and VM recover from the backup. Okay, so we have to select the backup. Next step would be where we would like to recover, to this host, to this data store, and we would like to connect to this network. The next step would be, again, if you would like to compress the data, encrypt it, the recovery modes, I will just keep explaining everything here, and I will just finish this job. So recovery, VMware recovery job. Moreover, Nakivo provides you with the replication. So replication that's keeping the identical copy of the VM on another host. And you can also orchestrate your DR process if you have the replication in your environment. So for this one, Nakivo is using site recovery job. Site recovery job gives you the possibility to create a DR plan and test this plan on a recurrent basis to make sure that all actions in this plan will be performed and everything will be okay if you have a real disaster, so those actions can be recoverable. And besides the testing, of course, if disaster happens, you can click one button and run that site recovery job and perform all recoveries in that specific sequence you have defined before. So let me add the existing site recovery job just to give you an idea. We have a first item here is to send an email. I will add this action. So this action is just sending an email to the staff of Nakivo, and we can say that we would like to run this on production mode only. So this means that if I will be doing the tests of this action, Nakivo will not send emails to the staff every time. Of course, that's not necessary. So that would be the first action. I want to add the other actions like on my DR side, I have some hosts running VMs, and those VMs are mostly for testing purposes. So I can create an action which is stop VMs in order to free up the resources on that host. So let's assume this would be the DR host, and we can create actually the policy which tells let's select that DR host. VM location would be this one. And we can add another rule, VM state should be powered on. So we will automatically select all the VMs which are powered on. Maybe you can create a third rule, which is with the tagging. Let's say a tag contains test. So all VMs with the test should be powered off because those VMs are not critical for me and I need to free up the resources on the R side. In our case, we don't have those VMs, so we'll just move forward. Then you can perform the failover of the replica. So we need to select the replica job and then click next and save it. Then we can perform wait. Let's say this replica, the VM of this replica is the most critical for me, and I would like it to be first available in the environment because the other VMs are relying on this replica. So I'm recovering first this replica, then I would like to wait for 5 minutes to let this replica to be up and running. Actually, 5 minutes is too much for replication. Could be less, could be even 3 minutes. And then we can do failover of another replica of the replication job number 2. And then we can do the run job, which is run job, which would be the one we've recently created. And that was the VMware recovery job. So if you want to include the recovery from the backup to the site recovery job, we can do that as well. Okay, we have 6 actions. Now we can move forward to the networks. You can enable network mapping. So you can create, you can map the source network. So if my replicas were on this network and not replicas, original VMs, I would say, were on this network, then the replicas should go to that network. And for the test environment, we would like to create isolated network. Let's save. So we created the rule. The same happens with Hyper-V, REAP. So you can create REAP rule, which tells if the source settings of the VM was like that, we need to change it to the different settings. And then the frequency of the tests. Oh, I have saved it. Okay. Well, let me just add it to continue. Test schedule. We would like to test it every Sunday, let's say. So those actions will be tested in the isolated environment every Sunday. And under options, I can set up the recovery time objective, so 20 minutes. So within the 20 minutes, I would like all the actions to be performed, because this is my recovery time objective. If those actions cannot be performed, of course, I can either review my environment, or I can look at the reason why it's not performed, or I can increase the recovery time objective if acceptable. That's it. So this site recovery job will run for me every Sunday in a test mode, and once disaster happens, all I need to do is just to click on run job, and then we are not testing it, we are running it, and then I can indicate what kind of failover would that be. Is that planned or emergency? So emergency, that's the one, of course, if you have lost all the original servers. So Nakivo will automatically bring up the target servers, the replicas on your DR side. If it's planned failover, Nakivo again will make a replica of the VMs and move the data to the DR side. Yeah, that's it from my side. So I can then pass the. I think we will cover the Q&As then. Yeah, okay, that's it from my side.
Thanks, Nick. We'll just pass over to Craig if that's okay. He can show a bit of
Sure.
a little bit on the actual interface on the NAS and how it's configured.
Okay.
Okay, hi guys, it's Craig at QNAP here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you just exactly how you can set this up on a QNAP just from the QNAP interface. So here I've got a couple of different NAS set up. So I've got one running QUTS Hero. As Nick was mentioning, it can run on most QNAP NAS, not every one. The really basic ones at the very bottom end with pretty much less than a gigabyte of RAM is not going to be possible. You know, that gigabyte of RAM has to work for running the QNAP OS as well as any apps that you install. But I've also got an NAS here running our QTS operating system. So there are really two ways to go about installing it on the QNAP. First, you can go to the App Center and you can go to the backup sync option. And down here, we've got the Nakivo options. So we've got two options there. We've got the Nakivo backup and replication, which is the full package with everything. Or we've got the transporter if you are hosting the application elsewhere. And it's really just a single click. So you can see here the version number. If you want a much more up-to-date version, I would recommend going to nakivo.com, as Nick showed, downloading the latest version. If you wanted to install that, it's just the little plus button here at the top. So when you click on the install manually option, you can just browse to your local disk where you've downloaded the Q package file that's there, choose for upload, and click install. And it's going to install the very latest version. This is version 10.2 from the Nakivo website. And it's going to upload and install that in the background. It only takes about a minute, minute and a half. It's very quick to install. While that's doing that, we'll go to one where I do already have it installed. So I'll show you sort of one little thing that you've got to know for running it on a QNAP if you want to change any of the default settings. So over here on this NAS, I do have a shared folder called Nakivo, and that's where I would like my repository where my data goes. I would like it to go there instead of perhaps the default created one, or perhaps you're adding another repository that's not the default option. Because QUTS Hero runs the ZFS file system, the backend structure is a little different from the basic QTS operating system. So one thing you will have to do to add this is when you go to the Nakivo backup and replication software, when you're in the settings and repositories, if you look at the onboard repository, it's showing you where it's kept. So it's actually put it in the public folder into a share, into a directory called repository. So if you didn't want it in the public folder or you wanted to create a new one, so what you can do is you can go back to the main screen here, click add a backup repository, click a new one. And one thing you'll do is choose the local folder. Now here it's very specific. It wants the path to local folder. And if you hover over the question mark, it wants the absolute path to the folder. So you've got to give the absolute path. So there's no way to find that out from within the interface. So one thing I would recommend is that you do enable SSH on the QNAP. It only has to be done temporarily for this process. So you can come here in the control panel and enable SSH. Once you've got that enabled, You can SSH in. So here's my SSH connection into the NAS. So first of all, we can do a directory listing with ls, and we can see everything. And the folder we want to go to is the one over here that's called share. So we'll go cd share. Very familiar for anybody using DOS from the old days. Now, when you look inside this folder with an ls, we can see that we do have a lot of folders, but one of them is called Nakivo. Now, that's the share that I've created. But because that's got the @ symbol at the end, that's basically Linux's way of saying it's effectively a shortcut. So if I did cd Nakivo and went in there, it is a valid path as far as the QNAP interface is concerned. I can see there's my share with the folders that I've got created in it. But this path is not the absolute path that the Nakivo software wants. So if we go back up a level, and instead of just doing ls for a directory listing, we do ls-l. And it's going to give us a different list. And we can see here that the Nakivo is actually in ZFS19_data. Now, I would recommend that you check this for every installation that you do. So it's not necessarily going to be called ZFS19. The numbering there for the ZFS file system will be given out in order of you creating the shares. So if you created 10 shares before you created the Nakivo one, this could be ZFS 29, for example. So what we're going to do is to get the absolute path is we'll go into that folder. So cd ZFS 19. And then in there, we should have a Nakivo folder. So that's what we're seeing. So now what we've got is we've got the absolute path that we need. So we can just copy that from there so that we can go paste it back into when we create a new repository. So that's really one of the main things that I wanted to share, that adding a absolute path with our ZFS-based file system, there is a variable here. So the ZFS19, because every single share that you create is effectively like its own volume within our storage pool infrastructure. It's not like that with QTS. So with QTS, it is much easier to change it because the start of the path will always be the same, and you just put the different share name at the end. So it's very easy to find it there. But for QUTS Hero, if you are running it with the ZFS file system, this is just a quick step that you've got to do to add it in there. So if we go back to the other screen, we should see that the app has been installed and ready to use. So if I go down here, you've got the icon on your desktop for the Nakivo backup and replication. We can click that, and it will launch you straight into the window. So it's a self-signed certificate, so you've got to authenticate in. So let's just log into that, and it will want you to agree to the license agreement and create your user account for connecting in. Once you've done this, you will effectively be at the main screen that we're seeing over here. So you've got your main dashboard and everything else. So that's the main thing I wanted to cover off, just the very specific QNAP side of things. So thanks a lot for the guys for covering the rest of the software. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask them. We'll keep the session open for a couple of minutes here. So if anybody does have any questions, you can effectively ask the experts while the Nakivo guys are on the session here, so that we can get any questions answered straight away. If anybody's question doesn't get answered during the session, don't worry about it. We'll export a report at the end, and we will get back to you as well at the end. Okay. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll just go quiet for a little bit now, and if there's any questions that everybody would take advantage of, we'll read them out and come back with the answer. Thanks a lot.
So we have got one technical questions and one technical and one license one. All right. So let me cover the technical one. The question from Darren. How does physical server connection work? Is there a management agent that needs to be installed? Right, so once you discover the physical server to Nakivo inventory, Nakivo will automatically inject an agent into that server. So there will be a communication between the director and the agent, which is sitting on either Windows or Linux physical server. Yuri, would you like to cover the licensing one? The licensing question?
Yes, actually, but I cannot see the question.
Let me read it.
Yeah, please.
What licensing policy applies?
policy-based feature included.
That's mostly related to the licensing. If you have Nakivo installed on the NAS, how do we license it?
Guys, I cannot hear you. Hello?
Sorry, we can hear you.
Okay, brilliant. Looks like now I'm organizer, so I lost the connection for a few seconds. Okay.
Do you want me to repeat the question?
No, I see it. The licensing policy, so how do we sell Nakivo, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, we have two pricing models. So first, it's per workload subscription. We're selling in units of 5 workloads. And one workload is either a virtual machine or physical server or 3 workstations or EC2 instance or one Oracle database in Enterprise Plus edition only. So that's more flexible because everything that Nakivo supports included there. And we have a perpetual pricing model. It's virtual per physical CPU socket on the source side. And we have 6 editions. It's basic from 1 up to 4 sockets, very limited. It has basically the VM backup and recovery, no object level recovery, and no some other features like encryption and others. So that's for very small companies. We have Pro Essentials and Enterprise Essentials. That's the most affordable editions for SMB market because they have the same feature set as Pro and Enterprise, with just providing the better price. So they are limited in terms of sockets from 2 and up to 6 CPU sockets per one organization. And the main difference between Pro Edition and Enterprise Edition, that's the site recovery feature, multi-tenancy, backup to Wasabi, to Tape, to Amazon S3, calendar dashboard, global search, Active Directory integration, and some others. And the Enterprise Plus has HTTP API integration, role-based access control, where you can set up the roles and groups, and you can provide the different roles to the different users with the different permissions. And of course, Oracle database backup also included in Enterprise Plus edition only. And but it's only for virtual, for VMware, Hyper-V, and Nutanix. If you need to protect physical server and workstations besides the virtual sockets, you have to buy separately the unit of 5 workloads or unit of 5 workstations or 5 physical servers.
I just want to clarify that if you have Nakivo installed on the NAS drive, you have to count the things you would like to back up. Let's say you have Nakivo on the NAS, but you have 2 ESXis with dual CPUs. So this means you need to count those CPUs on ESXis. It doesn't matter where Nakivo is installed. Nakivo is charging for the things you back up.
Yeah, thank you, Nick.
Okay, thanks a lot, guys. Okay, so I think that's going to be it for the session. I think we've covered off most of the questions there. If anybody else does have any follow-up questions, you can get in touch with Nakivo directly. You can get in touch with QNAP. For QNAP, it's uksales@qnap.com. So you can get in touch with us if you have any further questions about anything that we've covered here today. We will send a follow-up mail out with the screen recordings, just so that if anybody does want to redo the session, if anybody missed the start, they'll be able to rewatch it if they need to as well. Okay, thanks a lot, guys. Cheers. Bye.